to today's Blunt Talk episode. I am one of your hosts, Krystle, and with me we have the lovely B. That's so odd to say. It's so weird. It doesn't feel right.
But I was thinking it as soon as you said B, I'm like, oh, the person who made realistically, the person who made me lose my first account was Beyonce. So it's like I'm almost Queen B. So it's like it's perfect. B is perfect.
Oh
It's got
my gosh, it is. It
right.
is. And speaking of the ghosts of past Twitter accounts, tonight's topic is the paranormal. Both the science of it and the non-science of it, the spiritual aspect of it. The no, I guess you could say no concrete proof aspect because it's when it comes to spirituality, it's much harder. You can't really define it.
No, and you can't really prove it. I mean, what I forget what that saying is, but for somebody who already believes in it, they're just going to believe it. And for someone who doesn't, no proof is going to be sufficient. I forget exactly what,
Yeah,
but it goes along that line.
yeah, because there's no tangible
Yes,
evidence with
right.
spiritual, and it's not it's not necessarily bad, but it also makes it far harder to like explain things that you experience and feel and whatnot, which to a degree can have a negative effect because it just makes you feel like you're crazy.
I mean, you might be. It's
Yeah,
possible that you're crazy. We
that's
don't
true.
we don't want to tell people that they're not crazy. Like you could be, but you might not be. So it's just like
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe you might be crazy, but you also might actually be experiencing what you're experiencing.
Or yeah, yeah.
So how do we want to do this first? Do we want to just jump right into the questions and topics submitted?
I think we should just tackle the questions right away, get them knocked out, and see where the conversation goes.
All right, sounds good. Starting with something lighter, let's start with shadow people. What are
Ugh.
they? How do you see them? What do they look like? This and that.
Okay,
I
well,
feel. Go ahead.
I actually did see one like straight on when my husband and I moved into this house. Like I wasn't moving in right away. He had bought the house and we decided it was going to be a while before we actually moving in together. So I'm helping him move everything in and his brother is helping. And, you know, I look in the bedroom and there's like this black shadow in there. And I just assumed because, you know, I just assumed it was one of the two of them. So I'm like, what are you doing in there? And then I hear behind me, who are you talking to? And I turn around and him and his brother are there. And by the time I turn back, it's not there. And
Yeah.
what I didn't know, and he never told me until stuff started happening in our house. He never told me that the previous owner shot himself in the front yard. So he killed himself on the property. So that's fun because
Oh my God.
our dishwasher would come on by itself. You would hear popping and knocking. You would hear voices. I had her old crib kind of on the opposite side of the room when I heard banging, always when he went to work. So, like back to the you're crazy thing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's freaky. Especially the banging.
Oh yeah. That's not fun. And like the bottles, if you know like the plastic bottles, if you would squeeze them when they're empty and you release them, like that noise, I would hear that in the kitchen. Like
Oh
there's
wow.
noises. Yeah, and I used to text my husband like, "It's happening. I really need you to come home. I'm scared." Like if I'm scared, yeah. So, and he used to think I was crazy because it would never ever happen when he was home. And then I was starting to wonder, maybe I'm not hearing these things. Maybe it's because I'm alone at night and this is a new place, whatever. And then he was home one night and the knocking started and the dishwasher came on and he goes, "What was that?" And I said, "I told you." It's like I told you I'm not crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
Well, and the funniest thing was I found out the previous owner's name was Thomas. And I always called him Tommy. Like when it started happening, eventually it got to the point where I lost my shit. I'm like, listen, Tommy, we have to pay the electric in this place. I don't care if you want to chill here. You can't be scaring me. And you can't be turning shit on because I have to pay. We have to pay for this stuff. And like, I haven't had any experience since I did that. I'm like, you can stay here. Can't scare the kids. You can't scare me. You can just chill here, but you got to leave us alone. I didn't have any more experiences after that. So I don't know.
Yeah, you said for those who believe in it, and for even for those who don't, this is just a common practice of when you do believe in it and you do have you have a spirit in your house and whatnot. Like if it's like just your common spirit, setting boundaries like that usually gets them to stop. Which I would actually argue be that that's more than just a simple shadow person
Oh,
because
yeah,
that sounds like it's the actual spirit of someone who died.
that's true. I mean, but would they materialize as a black figure too? And like the one that the story that I'm not going to say publicly, but that I did to you off air, would that have been a shadow person? What I told you off air with my youngest daughter and the screaming and crying and running out of the room.
I understand about shadow people. It's difficult because that's another reason why it's so hard to like explain this stuff because every every spirit appears differently. Like
Right.
for example, you said this man committed suicide, right? You said he committed suicide?
Yep. Front yard. Shot himself. Stressed because his business or
Yeah.
something was failing.
So it like like on the one hand he could have appeared like that because of what happened, and when you get to a point like that, you're just really dark and heavy and depressed and whatnot. So he could manifest like that because of what he did, or you saw some two completely different things. It's hard to say. But
Well,
but from my understanding, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say too, which was weird, before I even knew, just when we were looking at the house and he finally settled on it and everything closed, I was here, we were celebrating and stuff, but the dad was actually the guy's dad was the one selling the home, and he was an older gentleman, and he gave us his card. And like I said, my husband just told me to later when stuff started happening. So it was weird when he handed us a card and said, if you guys have any issues at all, please let me know. And I'm like, I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, okay, it's like weird old dude, like whatever the hell that means. And then when this stuff started happening, I'm like, Robert, like, why is this stuff happening in the house? Like, I don't understand. I guess he thought by not telling me, it would make it where if something did happen, I wouldn't know that had happened. So it wouldn't influence me in any way, if that makes sense. You
Kind
know
of
what I
like
mean?
a don't acknowledge it. It's not there,
Yeah, kind
sort
of
of
like I
thing.
would, yeah, kind of if something would end up happening, he didn't want it. It would be easier to know if something was really happening if I didn't know and had any, I didn't have any knowledge of what had happened prior, I guess. I don't know. That's the only thing that I can think of. But I was really mad when I found out. I was really mad.
Yeah,
I'm like, you don't think that's vital information? You don't think that's info I would have needed? And he goes, well, I didn't
and
really
that's
think it'd be like it.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting, and it's I meant to ask Lucas before we started because he knows more about shadow people than I do. But from what I understand, shadow people, one, they usually don't talk. Two, it's weird because shadow people shadow people can either be like neutral or bad. Like either they're just there and they'll leave you alone, or like they like to cause mayhem and whatnot. Not full on mayhem, but just like disturb things and whatnot. But it's weird. It's almost like shadow people tend to be like things that didn't used to live, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
like they're
that's
just
good.
things.
What are they? Are they spirit?
It's
Are they actual deceased people? Or are they something else? What do you think?
it's like I really don't know how to
I don't-
describe it other than just entities that like lurk.
So, like the peeping toms of the spiritual world.
I mean, kinda.
That's
No,
their
no,
new name.
you could say that because if because I'm thinking about it right now, and the most common times I hear about shadow people is seeing
At
them
night.
in like, dark corners or like in like darker places like cemeteries and whatnot.
And out of the corner of your eye, you usually don't see them head on.
Yeah, it's just like other way to explain it other than they're just things that are there.
Well, I think
It's
I'm more scared now. Thank you, Krystle. They're just there. I don't know what they are. They're just there. Like,
you're
uh,
welcome. I will aim to help, but that's, well, it's more so because I can't really think of like something to distinguish them other than they're just entity. Think of it as like okay, think of it as congregated. They're the formation of like heavy energy, and that's kind of how you can best summarize it because they tend to like lurk in darker corners and in dark places. So it's like they're like heavy negative. Not maybe. Well, it depends on the shadow person, but like heavy negative energy, like just like really heavy dark energy congregated in the form of an entity. That explanation did not help at all. Should we move on?
yeah, yeah, because I'm more confused now.
I I'm even just confusing myself. So I'll move on to the fun thing which some people brought up, which was the the thing known as a djinn. That is well, what do you know about djinns, B?
Uh, Honestly, I just thought they were like demons, but kind of like the Arabic version of demons.
They kind of are.
Like, I guess the Muslim faith, right?
Yeah.
They'd be kind of like my because I'm Christian, they'd be like my version of a demon type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd be the Christian version of a lesser demon, like a lower level demon. So because in demonology, it talks about how like there's different categories of demons and different levels of demons. Like your lower levels would be something like a jinn in Arabic mythology or demonology, and jinns, believe it or not, are actually genies.
Like the
They
three wishes, right?
yeah, yeah, basically.
You can get three wishes?
It's it I I know there's wishes part of it, but it's like a genie you see in media. They are something you have to summon. Like you, to have an issue with a genie, you have to purposely summon that genie. Very rarely from what I know, do you just like come across them. So
Okay,
they
I see what
actually
you're saying.
yeah, like they actually have to be asked for. They have to actually be summoned. But unlike in media, when we see genies being like these cookies, like trickster. Well, I mean they are kind of like tricksters, but rather than being like these kooky, funny tricksters that are like there to help you and whatnot. Jinns, no, they're malicious. They're malicious and they'll use your want of wishes to, you know, basically oppress you and negatively influence you and whatnot.
That doesn't
They're
sound
actually,
fun.
yeah, they're actually, despite being a lesser demon, they're actually really tricky to get rid of.
Really?
Yeah, well, because that aspect from media is accurate. They are tricksters of a sort.
Hmm. Do you think that they are the same? How can I word this? Like each different religion has like the same type of spiritual entity, but they call it something entirely different. Is that possible that they're the same exact thing? It's just each group of people call them something different. Or are they something separate entirely?
Yes and no. I personally about all this. I personally think it's a mix of both. Uh, cause the one and the reason why I say that is when you look at like different cultures, mythology and demonology and whatnot, you do see like certain things that like are very similar. Like each culture has its different version of like in Christianity we have Satan, we have the devil. But in say in our culture it'll be called something completely different. And but it'll have a lot of the same attributes and whatnot.
Right.
However, not from what I've researched, and because for those who don't know, I do writing and I do lots of supernatural writing, so I've researched a lot of demonology, mythology, and that stuff of the sort. And from what I've researched and what I've known, there's nothing that is so similar to a jinn in our culture. Like, yes, they're both a type of demon, but there's nothing in our in Christian demonology or anything that's so much like a jinn that you could say, oh, like if you believed these all existed, there's nothing so similar that you could say they're the same thing. So part of me is kind of like maybe there are certain paranormal phenomena and spiritual things that are congregated in certain locations.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of another example. I can't really think of one off the top of my head.
I
Take for example. Sorry, go ahead.
no. I go.
I was going to quickly say there isn't a, for example, while there isn't a exact equivalent to fairies in Celtic mythology as there is over here in America in our culture. There isn't an equivalent that I know of at least.
Yeah, I don't know any
That's
either.
not yeah. That's not to say like they can't be in like different areas and whatnot. Like who knows? Maybe fairies are real and they are in the U.S. and like woodlands and whatnot. However, when you focus specifically on the mythology that is known and the culture and stories and whatnot, there is no equivalent to Celtic mythology fairies.
No, that
So
makes sense.
yeah. What was the other thing you were going to say before I interrupted with my second example?
Um, honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember. That's why I told
No.
you to go ahead. Like I started to talk, and then I'm like, it disappeared. It just went away, floated away from my head.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
I know it was awful. Because then you're like, what were you gonna say? And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna act like I'm being all nice, and she'll forget about it, and just gonna be like, no, you go ahead. I was really expecting you not to come back to me, but I forgot how nice you were. And now you made me admit that I don't remember.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I feel like I'm talking so much, so it's like, okay, stop, shut up, just shut up, Krystle.
No, it's fine. I like it. I have no problem with someone talking more than me. It's usually the opposite. So this is nice.
Aw, well, I still would like to I still would like to get your thoughts though first on near-death experiences.
Well, like I think some of them are definitely real.
Mm-hmm.
What real means and what they are, I'm not entirely sure. Because of my faith, I do believe that some of them, it's a possibility that they're real, right? I don't want to go too much outside of scripture as far as spiritual stuff goes, but I can see how it's possible. So I don't want to say they're not real and they're not, or that they are definitely real. I would just go and say I don't know, but I also think that there's a possibility that they could be, like I said, going back to Christian religion and my beliefs specifically, I've often wondered, is it possible that they could also be kind of like a trick of Satan? Because we know Satan and God are adversaries and they're, kind of polar opposites. So whatever God does, Satan will also do, and he'll tweak it and mess around a little bit. And I noticed a lot of and we talked about it a little earlier where you say well, Christians could be doing something specifically wrong. It's not necessarily that they're going to hell, this and that. But a lot of the Christians' near-death experiences seem to be like somewhat of a hell. Like, this is what happens to people who do this or who do that.
Yeah.
And an atheist, then atheists will have some of them anyway. You'll see examples of people that like believed in God but didn't necessarily have any steady beliefs, if that makes sense. Like, hey, I believe in God, I believe in a higher power, whatever that is, I don't know. Now, some of them will have near-death experiences and they'll say, oh, I felt light and I felt so much love and I can't wait to go there and God is love. And because of what the Bible states, I'm not necessarily sure that that was of God, type of thing. And what I mean by that is, what would you think, whether you believe in Christianity or not? Just go based off of the actual religious practices and beliefs. If it was Satan, what is Satan's number one goal?
To dissuade people from following God.
Yeah. And what better way to do that than convincing somebody that, one, everyone's going to heaven, so it doesn't really matter. Or to an atheist or someone that doesn't necessarily believe in a specific God, or that thinks God's a woman or some other such nonsense, but convincing them that they're on the right path, right? Because then, hey, I had this experience, and humans, we tend to be more feeling based than we rely on emotions and feelings, and we don't. Even Christians do. They want an experience. They want to feel something. And when they have that near-death experience, even if it counters scripture, a lot of times they're going to go with it because it's hard to convince somebody that what they've experienced is not real. So that's kind of my view on some of it. I think some of them are real and it's possible. But I just don't want to go on record of saying they're all real. And they're all from God. I don't want to do that.
Well, because one, this is where my logical brain is kicking in, because my logical brain is like, well, technically speaking, not every single one of them could possibly be real. Maybe there's some of them, but it's like, you can't say for 100% sure. And I was listening to you while also thinking, I'm thinking, I feel like I personally cannot understand that unless it happened to me, which I hope it doesn't happen to me. I'm good without little kicking pants, but know, it's one of those things you don't fully understand until it happens to you. And I don't know. It's like you're really getting me thinking with everything you said because I don't think I necessarily um, agree with all of it, but it is kind of getting me thinking. Like, it is interesting that like non-believers are getting more of the warmth and love, while actual practicing Christians are getting more of the hell and depiction and whatnot. So it's kind of like it's making me think both of like the psychological, but and also like the spiritual aspect of like either way it could go.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, psychologically, I'm thinking between Christian and a non-believer, the Christian would have more fear of going to hell than the
Right.
non-believer.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
So that could influence their psychology and what they see. And I'm bringing up my writing again, but it's actually kind of making me think of a character. It's actually making me think of a character I have written where it's part of his backstory. He has a near-death experience, and what he took from that near-death experience was that he was on his way to hell. However, he finds out later in the story I have planned that one of the angels will be talking to him, and they'll be basically telling him, what are you talking about? You weren't on your way to hell. You were completely fine. It just wasn't your time to go. So it's kind of interesting of like what's psychologically influenced, what's spiritually influenced, and whatnot.
Right. Well, I did look up some because I wasn't 100% sure on that specific topic. So I did look a little up, and what I did find fascinating when I was looking some things up, I seen where somebody was on the operating table or someone was in a coma, and that person would explain back to the doctors or the nurses and what have you, um, things that were happening to them when they were quote unquote dead. Like there was no brain function, their heart had stopped, they were pronounced dead. And
Yeah.
they when they brought them back, they were saying, well, like this happened or this conversation took place. And there was no scientific way, like they couldn't explain it. They couldn't explain how that person knew that. Or even the people that were in comas, they would know what they were doing or conversations that they had had. And they described it as essentially looking at themselves. Like they just felt like that was their shell down there, and they felt more, so they felt more alert than they would have and that they did in their body, which I thought was kind of fascinating. Of course, I can't. I'm always going to be a little bit of the skeptic. I talked about this earlier with you, but then I can't necessarily prove that. All I have is someone else's word to go on, right? Like unless I experience it, I'm still like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because people lie. It's a fact. And near-death experiences bring a lot of money too. People sell a lot of books, and that kind of makes me hesitant. And then if you have multiple stories, because like Ginger and I spoke, because I asked him earlier because I wanted to get his views. And he had made the comment that all these stories are alike. To which me still be myself and always giving Ginger a hard time. I'm like, right, but some of those examples could specifically have come from the Bible, like as far as the light, because we know the Bible specifically kind of states he's the light of the world and those kind of things. So I'm like, that would make sense that if they believed in God, that's kind of what they would see or kind of how people associate God. So it would make sense. And then as they would progress and this person said, oh, I have this experience. What happens? It's kind of like that. What do you call that one game? There was a game where the first person in the line makes a story or says some sentence and it goes down the line, and the story progresses as it goes down.
Oh, shoot. I'm blanking on the name, but I know what you're talking about.
So that's kind of my theory with some of these near-death experiences. I think what's happening is it's kind of that same effect where a little bit gets added each time, and the person's just kind of, if they are happening and these people are experiencing something, I'm wondering if they're not just adding to something that they've already heard.
Possibly. Again,
Yeah.
I feel like it's really one of those things you don't truly understand
Unless it happens to you.
Yeah, because it oh shoot, I clicked on the wrong thing. But it's one of those things that, because we can't really, unless we really wanted to experiment with, okay, guys, we got the test subject, we're gonna kill him and then try to bring him back alive in time and see what happened. Like, unless you're like really willing to play some sort of game to experiment and try to figure out what it is, there's no way to scientifically test or check this out. Because we can't know what happens when someone's near death. We don't know how much is a spiritual influence, and we don't know how much of it is a psychological influence.
Right. Well, like I took care of my grandparents as they were dying, and I was pretty much there for both of them. And my grandfather, I thought was weird. He would look up, because both of my grandparents ended up at hospice. My grandmother didn't. I don't want to say it like this, but this is kind of how they made it seem. Hospice is great, but at the same time, if you don't die quick enough, you get booted out. So my grandma, I guess, took too long to die. So she had to go to a nursing home. But my grandfather ended up passing in hospice. So when he was there, my uncle started crying. And if anyone has any experience with dealing with the elderly and people that are really close to death, it's a very traumatic and emotional time, and you don't want to upset the person. You don't. So it's really hard, because you're supposed to not try to show you being upset. You're supposed to make things as little stress, with as little stress as possible. So I sent him out of the room.
Yeah.
He would say things like he looked at me and said, "Why won't you let me die?" Like, I kind of don't control that. Like, if I could let you go out peacefully, I would do it. But I'm pretty sure you don't want me to go to jail. So like, we're not gonna. But he ended up looking up towards the ceiling and like reaching his hand out and like making this face. Now he didn't say anything, but in that split second, I'm like, what is he seeing? So like, I've seen those experiences in nursing homes and in hospice, and it's a really, I can't explain it. It could be psychological, it could be spiritual. I don't know, but he was definitely seeing something. I don't know what, but he was seeing something.
That actually makes me think of a really interesting thing, and I've heard some stories from friends and family where I don't, again, as you said, I don't know if it's spiritual or if it's psychological, but I've heard many stories where, like, they were either waiting for something to happen or they were waiting for someone to pass, and they noticed that it was a family member of Lucas's. They were talking about how someone they were really close to passed after they had come to terms with what was happening, and they finally let go, and they came to terms with like the fact that this person was going to pass away. And it was after they had let go that the person. So I don't know if there like is a connection with some people where if they know that someone near and dear to them isn't ready to let go, that they themselves aren't able to go, or if it's just a coincidence or what.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, because my grandmother held on for a long time, to the point where she got that death rattle where she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And if you've ever experienced that, you will never forget it until the day you die. it's awful. They can't breathe, and it almost sounds like they're suffocating, like their lungs are drowning almost. But she just kept holding on and holding on. She sat up like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't. And I said, it's okay. I know you love me. To which she kind of laid back down. As I left, I kind of leaned in, I gave her a hug, and I kissed her head, and I said, we're all going to take care of each other, Nanny. You don't have to hold on anymore. You can let go. Later that night at 1 a.m, I woke up right before my phone went off. And as soon as my phone started ringing, she had died that night, hours after we had told her she can let go. So like,
Oh man.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible. I
That
just,
kind
yeah, that was pretty awful. That fucked me up for a long time. Not gonna lie. I may be a strong person, but that fucked me up for a few years. Because
I'm so sorry.
no, don't like I think that's when, and I'm pretty sure I talked to Ginger about it, but like that's when I kind of had my lapse in faith to watch people that you love suffer in that way. It really does mess with your faith and believe in God.
Yeah.
And yeah, I turned into a hot mess there for a while, because that's tragic, and it really messes with you. I'm trying to remember, because I had just started dating my husband. I had just started dating him, and this was with my grandfather, like around when my grandfather passed. He was pushing my youngest daughter in the stroller so that I could be in there with him. But like that, if I didn't have him, it would have been really hard for me. My grandmother was the worst one. I'll be honest, I started drinking pretty heavily after that. I was under 30, and I had watched someone actually die, almost. That was traumatic, and I know people want to do it and you want to be there for your loved ones, but if you don't have to be and you have someone else there, I'm a really strong person. Anyone that knows me knows that will fuck you up. If you can avoid it and it doesn't have to be you, I trust me, I would not do it. If someone else can be there, let them.
That's kind of making me think of wow, I can't believe I'm going to talk about this, but you're right, it does really do something to you, because I actually witnessed that with my Jaju, who for those who don't know, I am a Jaju's girl. I was so close to him, and he died when I was really, really young. Like, I want to say around second grade, maybe before second grade. I can never really remember, but I actually did watch him take his last breath, and I never knew that because I actually have that entire memory blocked out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a lot of chunks of my childhood where I have no recollection of things, but that day is a especially big one I have blocked out, because I remember like leading up to like when because he was in bed rest at home. He was in hospice care at home. He had a nurse and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it was because he was just a homebody. He wanted to be at home. And I remember like my mom telling me to go get my uncle, and like I remember getting my uncle, and then I have like an entire hour or so of my memory of that day missing. So it's like my memory of that day goes from me getting my uncle to him being out of the house and family members showing up because he passed away. I have no recollection of like seeing him take his last breath. I don't remember. I think he might have said something to me, but I have no idea what he said because I blocked it out. I have no recollection whatsoever if he said anything to me, but he probably did because I was his only grandchild at the
Well,
time.
yeah,
So.
I think what happens when people start getting close to death, this is something that I think happens. I think they become more in tune with the spiritual world, and I think it's almost set up that way to prepare them. So it's almost like they're because I remember my grandfather, because when my grandfather started getting really sick, I had just left my youngest kid's dad, the one that was really abusive. So I moved back in with my mom, with my youngest, and he would say, and my grandfather was living with us, so he slept in the room next to mine. And I remember him saying stuff like, "Who is that old lady that keeps coming up from the basement?" And then I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I'm sick of this secrecy. Who is she?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what the hell you're talking about." But like, apparently he kept seeing an old lady, like I guess, that was coming out of the basement, coming up the stairs, coming out of the door, and like walking around the house. And then he kept saying, "And there's a lady that lives in my mirror." And I'm like, "Mom, tell him to stop scaring me." Because stop saying this. But
Oh
like,
my God.
yeah, it's really scary. And my grandma, she said, when she was in hospice, I think at this time, we were alternating, me and my mom, so that neither one of us got burnt out. And it was my turn to spend the night with her. And I was laying on the couch, and I see my grandmother sit up, and she takes a pillow and she like flips it back and forth, and she's looking at it and looking at it. And I'm like, "Man, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, there's blood all over this pillow." And this was when Brianna was really young. I don't remember exactly how old Brianna was. I'm thinking around 4, something like that. 4 years
Oh
old.
wow.
So yeah. So I was only like 24, 25, maybe 26. So like I was relatively, I didn't know how to handle that. And then I laid down, and she's like, "I wish you wouldn't lay your head down. There's glass everywhere." I'll tell you what, I'm like, "I'm gonna be right back, Nanny." I went right to the bathroom. I threw up, and I had to call my mom because it's so stressful handling those situations. I'm like, "Look, Mom, I love you. I love you to death, but I can't do it. I can't stay here tonight. I have to go home." So my mom had to come
Yeah.
in. But like, I don't know. Are they seeing these things? Or is it just like their mind? They're not getting enough oxygen or something? I don't know.
I have no idea either. That's man.
Yeah, my grandmother was legally blind too. So how she was seeing anything, I don't really know.
Oh wow. And on that
Yeah.
note, want to talk about sleep paralysis?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, let's do
oh no,
that.
sorry, not sleep paralysis. It was sorry, the person was talking about dreams. Uh, uh, when you're visited in your
Oh,
sleep after sunrises, is it a dream or truly an afterlife connection? Speaking from experience, and that was from Craig Schmier. Craig Schmier.
Krystle, you take that one first.
I okay. I guess I'm trying to think of how to put this. I feel like I could go either or, but I feel like the key thing to knowing would be if like they said or showed you something that you would have no way of knowing. Like for example, I think I've heard of a story where this woman, she was a very young woman. I think maybe even a teenager. Her abuela had passed away recently, and her abuela was showing her like this jewel, this like a family, this like necklace or pregnant or something. The next day, the daughter found something like that, which before this dream, she had no idea that was even a thing. And even then, she didn't know it was real. She just thought, oh, it was a dream thing. But she finds it the next day, and her mother's like, how'd you find that? And she's like, I just, I don't know. I had a feeling to look here, and I found it. And she's like, that was a very important, that's a very important family, uh, what's the word? Not emblem.
Heirloom.
Family heirloom. Yes, like that's a very important family heirloom, and I was actually gonna give that to you after your Abba's passing because she wanted you to have it. So it's like things like that where it's like the person gets information from their relative in the dream that they should no way know. They had no idea of. They should not have any idea of knowing, or they are shown something that they have no idea is real until they end up finding it down the line after they have that dream. That's
Right.
those are like the more like clear cut like examples I can think of like, oh yeah, that's probably afterlife connection. But and that's not to say that like even the most basic ones of like them just talking to you and comforting you and whatnot isn't a possible afterlife connection, but it's really hard with dreams like that to say either or because your subconscious could be trying to deliver you a message too in the form of the family member who passed away. So it's
That's
really
kind of what I think it is. I think it's more your subconscious trying to speak to you. Had an issue with that person. It's your subconscious trying to solve that problem in your sleep.
yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, I guess it's possible. But like after my a few years that died, she never met my great niece. Yes, I have a great niece. I shouldn't, but I do. Um, but anyway, my niece had told me, so something really weird happened. She seen Nanny. And I'm like, what? She goes, yeah. So I'm in the kitchen, and my great niece was really young. And my niece had said, no, don't touch the stove. It's hot. And she goes, I know. Nanny told me. And my niece is like, wait, what? She goes, yeah. Nanny comes and talks to me sometimes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because my youngest had stated she's seen my grandmother here. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I was like, fine. What'd she look like? She had never seen a picture of her. She described her perfectly. She'd never seen a
Oh,
picture of her, ever. And she described her and said she was standing on my bed.
oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing was, I had a handprint above my bed. And I know that sounds crazy on the ceiling. And the only reason I remember that is because my husband says, what were you doing? Why is there a handprint on the ceiling? Like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no, and I look up and right above where I sleep, there's a handprint up on the ceiling. And I'm
Dude,
like,
my mom actually had something happen to her.
like that? The handprint thing?
Except except it wasn't like a handprint. Like we lived in the house for so long, but someone was moving. Suddenly, this freaking boot print appears on the ceiling of my mom's room. Like
Ah,
it was clear as it looked like a boot print,
ew. That's gross. That's just,
right?
well, you know what's really scary? And I think, and see, because being skeptical, my youngest has this cow that used to be my grandma. And she would tell me that it talked to her. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the more she told me the stuff that it would say, it really freaked me out, dude. Because she's like, just out of nowhere, she's like, my cow talks to me and I know what hell looks like. And I'm like, excuse me, what? She goes, Yeah, there's a lot of fire. There's a lot of fire. It's really hot and it burns your skin. And I'm like, we didn't get rid of that cow. So where'd you put the cow? Because I'm like, and I told her dad, I'm like, he goes, oh, there's nothing to worry about. I really wouldn't worry. It's just kids being kids. Because I was going to say, I think maybe we need to take her to a psychiatrist. Because she said her cow is talking to her and telling her about hell. I'm like, oh, that's not. Because, Mommy, you don't have anything to worry about. So I'm like, that's nice. Let's stop talking
Yeah.
about your cow, please. But
Oh my
know my
God.
youngest. You've heard her and spoke to her. She's very, what's the word? She's very creative. She's very imaginative. Because the one day she goes,
Yeah.
there's a ghost that comes upstairs and goes in my dollhouse. I'm like, I always, right? It's like a freaking little kid. I'm like, stop saying things like that. You're scaring Mommy. Like,
Oh my God.
please. Yeah, it's really weird. Like every time she said, but I don't know. And my oldest had those experiences in my mom's old house that was built in the 1800s that I told you that I heard the voice. She had a little
Yeah.
girl that sat on the edge of her bed while she was trying to sleep. And she goes, I don't like sleeping at grandma's house. And I'm like, why?
Okay,
Goes,
this is
go ahead.
This is actually getting kind of eerie because this is like the third time in a row you've explained something, and I'm like, yep, heard that before. Yep, had that happen before.
I think there is a connection between people who are really in tune with their emotions and have a lot of empathy and have what's that? The intuition. I've noticed a lot of people that
Yeah.
have those things tend to pick up on things from not only people, but I think you have the ability to pick up on vibes and kind of vibrations that you can't see. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense, at least to me, because which we haven't really delved into it too much in this podcast, but originally I was going to explain like the scientific aspect of the whole paranormal stuff, and a lot of it is, it's energy based, like the tangible evidence you can get. It's a lot of like it's energy, and that's what it all is at the very basis. So it's like when you're in tuned in one area more of that stuff, it's kind of like you're more in tune to like the energy of things and whatnot. Like you and I have talked before about how like there's no real logical explanation for it, but we can just feel like there's something not right with someone, and that's us picking up. That's us picking up on like their vibe, their energy that they're putting off, as well as because not to just be like, oh, it's just the energy, it's just their aura. Oh my God.
Your aura is so off. I don't know. No, if after it's so weird because when I meet someone, even when I become friends with that person, it's always like this because you always think you're overreacting. At least I do. I always think, oh, you're over a really nice person. You're just being fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like, you're just being weird. There's nothing wrong. You don't have any evidence this person there's something wrong. So you just,
Yeah.
I'm just going to ignore my intuition. And then, like, time goes on and eventually something happens and you're like, yep, why do I do this all the time? You do it all the time because you don't want to say, oh, I don't like that person, because people are going to ask you, oh, why? Because usually people have a reason why they don't like somebody. What are you going to say? Just don't like them. Then you sound like a lunatic. I just get this feeling, like you said, their aura, something's wrong with their aura. You feel it. You can feel their energy. Some people literally drain you.
Yeah. They really do. And for those who are even more skeptical than you, because there are people who are just like really super skeptical. There
Mhm.
are, psychological and body language cues. Like for example, and I'm only using this example because I've been on a kick the past couple of days of watching Criminal Mind.
Me
There are
too.
people, no way, but
You didn't see my.
but
You gotta go look back and look at my tweet. I said I was getting off because me and don't mind. Krystle, dude.
oh my god, dude. Um, but there are people like FBI profilers and who are trained to look for, the psychological, like the subtle cues and like actions
Mhm.
and whatnot that like denote what's going on in someone's brain and whatnot. However, while, while I do like to study that stuff for fun and I do know a little bit about it, I'm not so freaking good at it that I'm like, you see, I just don't get a good feeling about this person because you see their body language, the way they do this, it's like it really signifies an obsessive personality and like you and I can't do that, but we just there's an energy to people.
I told you, Juan. They said, "Fucking
and
listen to me, damn it."
and you know what? Okay, this I guess wouldn't to just in my mind. But isn't it kind of interesting too how you can you at least I know. Isn't it weird how we can even kind of get that feeling from even just over a text? It's weird. It's like just like nonverbal
Mhm.
communication. That's like a weird like you can still kind of in a weird way sense like ooh something's not jiving.
Yeah, and I mean,
Doesn't have
I don't know about you either, but like if I'm really close to a person, like me and my niece can do it relatively well, but we know from miles and miles away. And I don't know if this would be paranormal, spiritual type of stuff, but we know when something's wrong with the other person. Almost like what they say twins have. Now, me and my niece, obviously, we're not twins,
yeah.
but we kind of have that connection too, where we know. And even through text, we can still feel it.
Yeah. And that's what I find really interesting as well. I've and I'm not talking about the cases where it's like, oh, this person's obviously not acting like themselves because they're not talking like they usually do. But I have times where even if they are talking or writing as like they normally would, I
Mhm.
can still kind of pick up on like, oh, something's really bothering them today or something doesn't seem right and that
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I do that too. And then you don't want to keep pushing either, because then you sound like a weirdo when they're like, "No, nothing's wrong," and you're like, "Yes, there is." Why are you lying to me? You're just like, "Oh, okay." Then you say to yourself, "They're fucking lying to me. Why won't they tell me what's wrong?" I don't think I've ever.
Yeah.
I think the only time. Well, I don't know. People usually don't tell me when I think I was wrong once. At least the person told me I was wrong. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't think I was wrong, Krystle. I don't care what they said.
Well, and that's where it also gets tricky too because I know and again I'm more using a example I've kind of noticed and it's not like this wasn't like this is by no means someone like I was friends with or anything, but I've had cases where I'd be following someone and I'd suddenly start noticing that like something's not the same, like something's not right, but the person themselves probably doesn't notice there's an issue until it becomes such an issue that they themselves even notice it. I'm trying to think of like a really specific example so I can actually explain it.
I know what you mean, but other people might not.
Okay. Take for example, this will be a hypothetical because I can't think of it. Because I've had this happen before, I believe, but I'll just use a hypothetical to make it easier on myself. Like, take for example, you have a best friend, and then your best friend decides to take on this new job or this new project, and you start noticing that this person, that your best friend, is starting to, not really feel the same way they usually do or act like themselves, and they'll say like, they'll genuinely believe everything's fine, there isn't an issue, even though they are clearly acting like something is an issue or like something's not the same. And even when you try talking about it, they're like, no, it's fine, everything's fine. What are you talking about? It's not until like say it piles on more and more and more that they realize, okay, maybe this okay, so turns out this job's been really weighing on me and it wasn't the brightest thing for me to take this job. And, if that makes sense, like,
you're picking up on their subconscious, I think is what it is.
Yeah. That's the best.
I know what you mean. I've had that happen too.
Because I do genuinely believe there are times where even if someone isn't acting fine and they're saying like they're not fine, there can be some cases where they genuinely think everything is fine. They're just not seeing what you're seeing, and it isn't until everything piles up that it kind of hits them like a ton of bricks of like, oh, like I don't like using such a sad and unfortunate comparison, but take for example like people who get into abusive relationships. People outside tend to notice the signs sooner than the person within it.
Yep.
So I should have just used that example from the get-go instead of my weird whole like, oh, your best friend gets a job and like like I should have just freaking used the most clear thing, which is like, oh, and your friend, like if you know someone that gets into an abusive relationship, notice it before they do, and yada yada yada.
You know what? Being we went off on this empath kind of tangent, which I think does have some things to do with paranormal, I think we should actually do that at some point.
Yeah.
Surviving as an empath.
That would be interesting to do, especially since it's like it's a whole. I don't want to say a whole thing, but it's like it is a really different experience.
It's a whole thing. What do you mean you don't want to say? It's like a whole thing.
Yeah, it is a whole thing.
Because like if you're out with like a group of people, and I think that's why, like, cause you know how people just assume I get angry and I'm just freaking lashing out and shit.
Yeah.
It's because I react differently to being overwhelmed as an empath than you do. I lash out differently, whereas my teen is the same way, but she reacts differently. She will she gets nasty too, but she does it in a way where she's trying to get away from people. She wants to be by herself and be left alone because her emotions, she gets too overwhelmed.
Yeah.
How am I corrupting Krystle? Nobody's corrupting Krystle. What is this? What does that mean?
Corrupted.
Krystle, I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Maybe we shall find out because I'm sure Juan will explain. Because now I'm kind of curious too. But I definitely agree with your daughter because agree. I do the same thing as your daughter, and I can relate to that because it's. I do get bitchy when I get overwhelmed. But it's it's weird it's like I want to get cranky at people, but at the same time, deep down, I don't want to get cranky at people. So it's like I try to isolate myself, but then because Lucas, he understands the whole empath thing, so it's like he knows he doesn't. It's not good for me to like stay in that mindset, and he wants to help me get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But so that makes it harder for me to isolate myself. So I end up getting cranky at him, and then after I'm out of that mood, I feel bad because I got cranky at him. Oh, it's because of the cussing.
Oh my gosh, Juan, shut up. Oh no, Krystle said a naughty word. She was saying naughty words. She says them in our private conversations all the time. You just don't know it. Krystle, don't try to act innocent on here. You tell him.
I'm not trying to act innocent. It's weird. Okay, it's weird because believe it or not, I was never big on cussing before, but for some reason, when I hit my 18th birthday or something,
Oh, it is me.
I was just like, I added all the curse words to my vocabulary, and I don't understand it.
He said, whatever, terrible. I mean, now listen, Juan, and I think even Krystle I have gotten a lot better at the cursing. I used to do it a lot more.
You are better.
See, I think I'm doing a lot better. Unless I'm just trying to toot my own horn. Shut up, Juan. See? I didn't say the F word like I usually do.
It's so funny. But I should note, we are actually just past our end time.
Okay.
So I don't know. Do you want to keep going? Because I'm fine to keep going if you want to.
I honestly do not care. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about I had read as well as listened to some YouTube videos that were actually fascinating regarding paranormal stuff. There is a religious aspect to it where some people actually think that ghosts are not ghosts, but they're fallen angels. Essentially, they're demons trying to convince people that it's their loved ones when it's actually not. And I thought that was an interesting theory. And the way that they kind of play it out was they want people to believe, like, again, with the near-death experiences, that everything's honky-dory and everyone goes to heaven and it's all love and all light kind of thing, to like keep people away from God. I thought that was a fascinating argument. I'm not saying that I believe it. I just think it's fascinating. Part of me does. And the other part of me, because there are specific places in the Bible where, the dead know nothing and stuff like that. But I'm like, and then there's other verses that say, absent from the body, presence of the Lord. And they're like, oh, well, you're in heaven. So obviously you're not in the world. But then you see God is everywhere. So if you're with God, maybe you could be everywhere. And if you're everywhere, then why can't you be here too? You know what I mean? So like, what the hell? Oh no, I swore.
I mean,
do you see what I'm saying?
But also, I do, but I also very much disagree with that argument. But I feel like I should also note I don't. My beliefs with all this aren't based on solely scriptures and whatnot. Partly because I wasn't raised that religiously, but also because I don't know if it's bad of me to say or not, but I feel like when it comes to the paranormal and supernatural, there's a lot more. I don't want to say nuance, but there's a lot more to it than is just in like scripture.
No, I believe that.
There's like a whole bunch to it, so I don't believe it's just a black and white thing. It's because as I mentioned with shadow people, you're neutral, like they don't mean any harm, they're just kind of there, but they could also be bad.
Well, I mean, I think that's with everything. Like you don't, and when I say half of the stuff that I say, these are just theories or working kind of thoughts, like me thinking out loud. like with the near-death
Yeah.
experiences. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm not saying they do exist. I'm saying I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Which
I think
is
no
completely
one's fighting. No one's fighting, Juan. We do this all the time. But what I will say
fun.
is I kind of think it would be kind of wrong, regardless of whether you go into this from a religious aspect or just kind of like a hobby aspect where it's paranormal, it's fun. It is interesting to look at these things, regardless of which way you come at this from.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's ignorant to say that it's this 100%. I kind of think it.
Yeah.
We don't know. There's a lot of things that we don't know. We're not in the spiritual realm, so we can't 100% know one way or another. And I think it's kind of it's egotistical to say that any of us do.
I actually, and I'd be curious for your thoughts on this, because I just now remember because I talked about this stuff before with other friends of mine, and another friend of mine who is she's a active practicing Christian. She mentioned how she finds it fascinating, and I don't know if you've noticed trend, but I feel like I kind of noticed it. It seems to be a trend where for Christians, it's easy to believe in angels and whatnot, but the idea of demons being real is kind of like, are you kidding me? No, because my friend encountered said she encountered a lot of people like that in her like circles and whatnot. She's encountered lots of Christians who were like, yeah, angels are definitely real, but like, no, demons aren't. No, what are you talking about?
Do you know specifically why those Christians would believe that they're not real? Because maybe they're just calling them something different.
I because I feel like I don't notice it as often anymore, but I feel like I have noticed it, and I honestly don't know why. Because it's not like they call demons by a different name. They just straight up don't think demons are possible or are a thing.
Well, the only reason I ask that is because some people use fallen angels and demons interchangeably, and being that they said they believe in angels but not demons, like that kind of led me to believe like maybe they believe, you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah,
kind of use them interchangeably. I think they're kind of essentially the same thing. Maybe. I don't know.
I it's weird because I don't think they were even using fallen angels. I think they were just saying, "No, what are you talking about? That's crazy."
But that
Which
doesn't make any sense, especially
doesn't
if especially if they're Christians. Because what do they do with Lucifer? What do they do with Satan?
it really I have no idea. Like I'd have to
Have
look
your
more.
friend ask them, because that's gonna bug me now. Have your friend find out. Tell them I need to know, because that's gonna bug the shit out of me now.
I
I
can
need,
do that.
yeah, please do that.
It's I don't know. There's a lot of weird things sometimes. Like I know there are some Christians that believe it's not like I'm not even talking about like praying to the angels. Like just even talking about them is bad. Like
I've heard of that.
goes against God to even talk about the angels and whatnot. And that one is kind of like what? And that only really makes me confused mostly because it's kind of like I would think you'd want to because obviously there's demonology until it's so hard to find anything on the good side of things, which is angelology. Like it was so hard to find out about like the good entities, like the good angels and the archangels and whatnot. I remember I used to have a really hard time finding that stuff. But demonology, just it's like you type in research to you type in the research demonology and the floodgates just open on the information available.
I think it's because people are more interested in that. Well, look at the
Fair.
condition. Look at the condition of our world too, Krystle. Look at what the hell's going on. Obviously, more people would be interested in demons than angels.
That's true. And I think it's also more fascinating in a way because with demons you have to actually understand them to know how to get rid of them. If you believe in this sort of thing, demons are more so something you would want knowledge on because if you encounter one, oh hey yeah, I kind of need to get rid of that.
Well, I mean, I think I may be one of the few, well, probably not the few. I mean, even though Ginger considers himself a Catholic and you've seen and witnessed us argue multiple times, but like,
Yeah.
I still think he would agree with me on, we agree with each other on a lot. And I think one of the main ones is you should know both sides. It's the only way I think to stay, what's the word I'm trying to think? It's the only way to stay kind of spiritually honest with yourself. Yeah, well, sound too. Like knowing you kind of can't protect yourself from the enemy if you don't know who the enemy is.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's also too, at least for me, it's really fascinating to know both sides because when you look at it, there is a sort of equilibrium to know to in like take for example the seven deadly sins. When you look at angelology, there's actually to counteract the seven deadly sins, there's the seven heavenly virtues, which have archangels to go along with those virtues to combat the deadly sins that have their demons.
Right.
So well, it's like yeah.
Well, like earlier, what did I'm trying to think of how I worded it, but I think for everything that God does, I think there's a total opposite that Satan does too. It's just a different version. It's like because what's that the one verse he will ascend to heaven and be like the Most High. So he wants to be like God, so he's going to mimic God, and it's just going to be a spin-off version.
Yeah.
That whole it's very hard to convince somebody. Sorry, I'm trying to rinse out the tub here. It's very hard to convince someone of a lie if it's 100% lie as opposed to throwing in little bits of truth.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, little bits of lies in with the truth. Kind of like poison. What is it? Rat poison is like, I don't know, 99.9% food or something like that, and only 0.1% poison.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, something ridiculous like that. And it still kills them because there's a little bit of poison. It doesn't matter how much food's in it. There's poison, there's poison.
Yeah. And it's also...
Didn't know what? Sorry, Juan said what? I didn't know that.
Oh, I think he was playing sarcasm when you were talking about like how there's a opposite to Satan does the opposite of whatever God does, and he's like, "What? I didn't know that." That's the way I took it. Juan, you can say if I'm right or wrong.
Juan's freaking... Damn it, Juan. Juan's the reason, I swear.
Go ahead.
No, it's just me. Yeah. Oh, the seven heavenly virtues.
Okay. Yeah, dude. Yeah, there's of course right now I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember I found that stuff because I was researching it for my story, and there's the seven heavenly virtues, and there aren't specific archangels that go along with it, but the fact that there are seven archangels, it kind of, to me, that kind of correlates with the seven heavenly virtues. Because, yeah.
And there's different, like there's the first heaven, the second heaven, and so on and so forth.
There's a hierarchy to the There's a hierarchy to the angels.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Well, Satan was one of the higher ones.
He was an archangel,
Hmm.
and then he fell. He not to toot Satan's horn, but before he fell, he actually was, from what I remember reading
The
and
most
studying,
beautiful.
he was the most beautiful. He was the strongest. He was the best of the angels. Even though he wasn't one of the like top angels, because the top angels are like literally fire, but he was like, okay, he was like one, because I kind of consider the archangels like the quote unquote warrior angels, because when you look at their depictions, they're like wearing armor. They usually have like a sword, that stuff.
Yeah.
So he was like the best of the best, because he was a warrior, and as Juan said, God's favorite. And obviously, that went to his head. His brother Michael cast helped cast him into hell. So we actually have a statue of Archangel Michael slaying.
Oh, I thought you were going to say of Satan. I was going to say Krystle.
No, I don't go that far with jokingly calling myself the devil. Okay. No,
Oh,
we have a statue of Archangel Michael slaying Lucifer in our family room.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that's weird. Like when you said you don't go that far with when you call yourself jokingly the devil. A
Yeah.
lot of people, when I say I believe in God or that I have a Christian like not background, but I have a Christian belief, they're like, what? And like I can kind of get it because I am definitely not the best example of what a Christian is. I am very abrasive. I'm very loud. I can get downright nasty. But yes,
Well, what I
one would think you were. You're very calm. You're very sweet, very kind.
which is actually kind of interesting, because I'm still really figuring out my place and all that. Mostly because this is going really personal, but mostly because I feel like I have a hard time. I I I don't know how to word it. I feel like my belief with God and my praying and connection to that, I feel like I can't. I feel that connection stronger doing what I do, which is basically just listening to. To put it in the way Lucas once put it to me, it's basically just having a straight on conversation between me and God. Like that's where I feel like my strongest connection. That's where I feel my strongest belief. So it's kind of, I don't want to say I'm in limbo. I haven't really.
You're
I'm not.
young, like Juan said. You're still very young.
Yeah, but it just
You don't
it's.
even know you don't even know who you are yet.
I mean, I kind of do.
No. Sorry. I'm like you're like trying to tell me how you feel and I'm just like, no, sorry, no.
Well, to put it this way, I'm. I
We're really gonna fight now, Juan.
I don't want to fight, but let's just say I'm currently doing right now what I knew I wanted to do in like middle school, and like I was one of the only people in like throughout school when I who actually had like an idea of what I wanted to do, having a plan of how to get it and stuff like that. And I'm.
Oh, I didn't necessarily mean like your goals as to what you want to achieve. I just mean I don't really think anyone knows at your age who they really are yet until you progress. And maybe you do know who you are right at this given second, but that's not necessarily who you are, if that makes sense. Because
Well,
20-year-old you is not obviously going to be 30-year-old you.
well, obviously no.
See, fight. Krystle did get sassy with me, Juan. It might happen.
No, I don't want to fight, but I also feel like I'm like more introspective than a lot of people around my age, and I definitely have changed a lot, and I do have a better, more stronger foundation of who I am than I did when I was like 18 and even last year. And I know it's going to change down the line, but I do have certain things where I how to put it. I've really whatever. Let's just move on.
You have grown though. Even since I met you, you've grown.
Yeah.
I can see it. Ooh, let's do most scary personal paranormal thing that's ever happened.
Ooh, who wants to go first?
I mean, I can if you need to think about it.
Go ahead, because I didn't need to think about it.
Okay, well, I had told you off air, but when me and my niece were fooling around with an Ouija board, and then we saw a black figure in the mirror with like red glowing eyes. I guess that's what one considers a shadow person.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty scary, and things kind of started happening in her house after that. So that was probably the scariest thing that I experienced. All the other stuff that I experienced didn't really, it scared me, but not to that extreme, because I never seen anything that pronounced, if that makes sense, like that. Because the other things that I seen or heard, they didn't last as long. They were there and then gone, but that one kind of lasted for, I would guess, up to 5 minutes. Like, it was horrifying.
Yeah.
Shut up, Juan. You need to clap back. Yeah, go ahead, Krystle. You're scariest.
See, right now, at the going back to knowing how I am, knowing who I am. Right now, and I'm sure this answer will change down the line, because I know this answer used to be different. Like if you asked me, like even months ago, if you asked me, this answer would be different.
Right.
Right now, my answer would have to be, the scariest stuff would have to be some things that I've actually felt. Going back to the whole empath thing. I won't get too much into details about it because it's very personal, but I have a friend who went through something very, very serious and hard and dark, and around that time, the whole empath part of me kind of kicked in, and I felt what not necessarily they felt, but someone around them felt. And that feeling still gets to me today. I mean, granted, what am I saying still gets to me today? It didn't happen that long ago, but it was like that currently is okay. I guess it's not necessarily the scariest, but it's definitely the worst feeling I had, which was, to basically summarize the feeling, it was basically feeling like, imagine having someone you love in front of you, and you're trying to help them, you're trying to stop them from doing something, but no matter how loud you even scream at the top of your lungs, they just can't hear you. Like nothing you do is helping, nothing you do is working. They literally don't even know you're there trying to help.
It's almost like you're unable to do anything. It's like a lack of control.
It's like what it's like pain because you're watching someone you love go through something so hard and difficult. It's also frustrating because you're doing everything you can, but it's just not working, and it's also a feeling of what are you, of hurt because you feel like you're unheard. And
Well,
so
that makes sense.
yeah, and it was that yeah, that's so far, I guess not the scariest, but definitely the worst experience so far. In just having that feeling, and it wasn't even my own, but to just feel it so strongly.
Yeah, I don't think I'd like that.
Yeah, no, no, I actually take it back. I think I've had it twice. Yeah, I had that happen twice, and I think the second time I pretty much almost started hyperventilating. It was so bad.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I just realized that makes me sound like a complete nutso. So
I mean, not anything, not any more than anything we've said already.
that is
Krystle,
true.
we're talking about seeing ghosts and hearing ghosts. I'm pretty sure someone's gonna call to have us psychologically evaluated. It's fine.
I jokingly call myself Satan. I think I'm already in trouble. Because for those who don't know, wow, I keep mentioning my writing today. But for those who don't know, I jokingly I started calling myself that because of how I am as a writer. Like my writing is, I don't want to say it's that depressing, but I definitely do put my characters through a lot of trials and tribulations, and they go through difficult things. So I just started jokingly calling myself, oh my gosh, I'm the devil to these characters. And every now and then I'll like stop and like nudge Lucas and joke, you think I have a lot of explaining to do once I die? You think I have a lot to do to God? I'm sure he probably gets it, but I still feel like he'd probably want me to explain something.
I mean, I think that's pretty normal for everybody.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even imagine a Christian being like, well, actually, no, I can, because there are some actual Christians who think they are sinless and just amazing and perfect. I have yet to meet a single perfect Christian. I don't know what they're talking about. I hate to
What
break
what
their heart.
what more so gets me is the people who are like, I'm not saying I'm a perfect Christian,
I'm saying
but
I've been forgiven.
yeah, and then they immediately go into like judging someone else and like giving someone else grief for not doing what a quote unquote perfect Christian would do. And I don't mean like anything like big of like they're doing some serious crap they shouldn't be doing. I mean like they did something small. Like I know I mean this isn't Christian. This wasn't the Christian domination. It was my family's Roman Catholic. My when they were still in Michigan and they would attend church, they were constantly getting grief about not donating enough money, despite the fact they weren't doing so hot on money themselves. So it's like they were like struggling financially, trying not to ask anyone for help, but every Sunday they would go and they'd get the whole thing of like, you could donate more. And it's like, can you not please?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the worst thing that I have an issue with is people who think, and I know we're probably totally off topic now, but who cares? There's really, who cares? We're going to end up doing this multiple times anyway.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at the Bible and who Jesus was and who Christ is, he had a major problem with hypocrites.
Yeah.
The Pharisees were the ones he had a major problem with. They had the outward appearance of being holy and righteous and doing everything by the book and following the law, but the inside of them was filthy. It was dirty, and they were just evil in their heart. I don't like the Christians that are, oh, well, this action is wrong. So you're therefore a horrible person and we need to disassociate with you. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I mean, if you look at it like this, all Christians make mistakes, all Christians sin, just like everyone does. And I do understand when Christians say, well, I'm not perfect, I'm forgiven. I get that part. But I think a lot of the times they forget the sole purpose, and what they're supposed to be doing is winning people to Christ. And judging when you're judging a sinner that does not believe in Christ by biblical standards, you're not going to win them over to Christ anyway, because you're already judging them as if they are in Christ. They're not.
Yeah.
You're already judging them in that way. You're not going to win anybody that way. You're just not. And plus, Christ sat with sinners. And I'm so sick of hearing people just, no, it's perfect. A lot of these Christians that people cannot stand are what Christ would have called the Pharisees. And I'm sorry, Christ wasn't always nice either. That's why I don't like when people say, well, you're not being very nice. Christ wasn't either. He overturned tables and he called them vipers. Back then, that would have been like, I don't know, me calling someone a fuckhead. I don't know. It wasn't a nice thing to say. But I mean, I think there comes a time when it's okay to not be what one would deem necessarily nice.
Yeah.
And plus, I think there are people that make a lot of, I don't know, how can I say this? A lot of people make mistakes, but I don't think their hearts are necessarily bad. Whereas somebody could do a lot of good and their hearts might not actually be good, because you don't know the struggle that person's going through internally. There could be somebody that's making fun of everybody and just lashing out and being a dickhead to everybody, right? But their heart is good. We don't understand it as humans, because a lot of people will say, well, if that person's lashing out like that, isn't that kind of indicative of somebody who has a nasty heart? I would kind of counter that. I don't know that it is.
A phrase I would use is hurting people hurts people.
Hurt people hurt people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hurting. Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, bye. I don't know who you are.
Hi, Cole. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh, you know who it is? I had no idea. I'm sorry. See, that's why we make a good team, because you're nice.
I try to be. I hate the moments when I'm not. But I know, surprise, surprise, sometimes I'm not nice.
I mean, even when you're not nice, though, you're still kind of nice. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, okay, but to be fair, you haven't seen when I've had, like, my buttons truly pushed.
Oh, that's true. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Which I hope you never do, because I never want that to happen. And I don't like getting that upset at people. I just don't.
I don't think anyone really likes it. It's not really fun.
It's not.
I mean, I do it all the time. I don't necessarily like it, but I don't necessarily go out of my way to avoid it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get that.
If it happens, it happens.
Yeah. Was there anything else paranormal related we wanted to touch on?
No, probably not. We should get off of here.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do another episode where and hopefully I'll have more stuff on like EMF and EVP, and we can talk about those things, because I actually found interesting stuff on infrared, like heat signatures. So we can talk about, but we can talk about next time we talk about the paranormal.
Yeah, and we could also do like a question and answer, or just a fun one, just like a chat one. That'd be kind of fun.
Ooh, yes. I can bust out my demonology and angelology knowledge.
Oh shit.
More. It'd be fun. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff, like a lot of interesting and also kind of weird stuff. So
Good.
yeah. And on that note,
Let go drink.
be
Sorry. Juan's like, let go drink.
and on that note,
Mhm.
B and I bid you a good night, and be sure to tune in next time we do a fun talk episode, and keep fighting the good fight.